The great chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with quiet conversation as delegates from 847 different worlds took their seats. The meeting hall stretched for miles in every direction, its crystal dome showing the stars beyond. Each race had their own section designed for their needs. The aquatic Nurians floated in their water tanks while the gas-breathing Vorthons shimmered behind energy fields that kept their atmosphere separate from the others. Today was special. They were about to welcome their newest member to the council, a small blue planet called Earth from the outer rim of the galaxy. Most delegates barely paid attention to such routine admissions. New worlds joined the council regularly, usually primitive civilizations that needed protection and guidance from their more advanced neighbors. Admiral Sarah Chen walked into the chamber followed by a small group of humans. She wore a simple, blue uniform with basic metal insignia. Her people looked almost comically primitive compared to the other delegates. While the Zephyrians floated in their energy shells, and the Crystallans projected themselves as pure light, the humans simply walked on their own 2 feet. Council Speaker Valorian rose from his floating platform. His tall, elegant form cast shadows across the chamber as he began the formal ceremony. We gather today to welcome the species known as humans from the world they call Earth. As per standard protocol, please present your military capabilities for council review. Admiral Chen stepped forward without any ceremony. She activated a simple holographic projector that looked ancient compared to the quantum displays used by other races. The images it showed made several delegates struggle not to laugh. Our primary space vessels are constructed from titanium steel alloys, Chen explained in a calm voice. They measure between 200 and 800 meters in length. Our largest ships can carry up to 2,000 crew members. A Zephyrian delegate whispered to his neighbor, "Did she say steel? Actual metal construction?" The hologram showed boxy angular ships that looked like flying buildings. They had no elegant curves or energy fields. They were just gray metal boxes with engines attached. Our defensive systems rely primarily on ablative armor plating, Chen continued. Our ships can withstand direct impacts from projectiles up to 50 kilograms traveling at standard orbital velocities. Several delegates exchanged amused glances. The idea of using physical armor instead of energy shields seemed absurdly backward. Our weapon systems include chemical propellant projectiles, explosive warheads, and directed energy systems with limited range, Chen said, showing images of what appeared to be simple cannons and basic laser weapons. Council Speaker Valorian nodded politely, though his expression showed barely hidden amusement. And your fleet size? Earth maintains approximately 12,000 combat vessels of various classes, supported by 30,000 auxiliary ships. This number caused a slight stir in the chamber. It was actually quite large for such a primitive civilization. Most worlds brought maybe a few hundred ships when they joined the council. Impressive numbers, Valorian said diplomatically, though I notice your technology appears to be several centuries behind current galactic standards. Your weapons use chemical reactions rather than plasma energy. Your ships lack quantum shielding. Your communication systems appear to use primitive radio waves rather than quantum entanglement networks. Admiral Chen nodded seriously. That is correct. We have focused our development on reliability and mass production rather than advanced technology. A ripple of quiet laughter went through some sections of the chamber. The idea that anyone would choose primitive technology over advanced systems seemed ridiculous. The Vorthon delegate spoke up, his crystalline form pulsing with different colors. What is your experience with actual combat? Have your forces engaged in significant military actions? Chen paused for a moment. Yes, humans have been engaged in various conflicts for most of our recorded history. We have extensive experience in ground combat, naval warfare, aerial combat, and space operations. Against whom? The Vorthon pressed. Surely not against any civilized species. Against ourselves, Chen replied simply. This answer caused confused murmurs throughout the chamber. Most civilized worlds had achieved peace centuries or millennia before developing space travel. The idea of a species fighting itself all the way to the stars seemed almost barbaric. The insectoid Thrakari representative clicked his mandibles together in what passed for laughter among his people. You fight your own kind? How wonderfully. Primitive. Admiral Chen showed no reaction to the mockery. Conflict has been a constant throughout human history. We have learned to adapt our tactics and technology based on practical experience. Council Speaker Valorian decided to move the discussion along. Very well. Your application has been reviewed and approved. Earth is hereby granted membership in the Galactic Council with the status of protected agricultural world. You will be assigned territories in the outer rim sectors where your unique approaches to technology will not interfere with established trade routes or diplomatic relations. The classification of protected agricultural world was essentially the Council's polite way of saying Earth was too primitive to be trusted with important responsibilities. They would be allowed to grow food and maybe mine some basic materials, but nothing more significant. You will receive standard Council protection against any external threats. Valorian continued. The 4th Defense Fleet will be responsible for your sector. Their advanced ships and weapons will keep you safe from any hostile forces. Admiral Chen accepted this with the same calm demeanor she had shown throughout the presentation. We are grateful for the Council's protection and look forward to peaceful cooperation. As the ceremony concluded and delegates began filing out of the chamber, conversations buzzed with amused commentary about the new members. Did you see their weapons? Laughed a hegemony officer. Chemical propellants, they might as well throw rocks at their enemies. Their ships look like flying scrapyards, added a Nerian diplomat. How do they even manage to reach orbit with such crude technology? At least they will be harmless, observed a crystalline representative. Put them in the agricultural sectors where they can grow food and stay out of everyone's way. Admiral Chen and her delegation made their way out of the chamber without commenting on the conversations around them. They had accomplished what they came to do. Earth was now officially part of the Galactic Council, even if it was in the lowest possible category. Back on their transport ship, one of Chen's officers finally spoke up. Admiral, they really think we are primitives. Chen nodded as she looked out at the massive council station surrounding them. Ships from hundreds of different worlds moved through carefully controlled traffic patterns. The technology on display was genuinely impressive. Energy shields, quantum drives, weapons that could tear apart asteroids. Let them think that, she said quietly. It is better this way. But Admiral, when they see our real capabilities, they will see what we choose to show them, Chen interrupted. For now, we are exactly what they think we are, harmless farmers, who got lucky enough to develop space travel. The transport ship moved away from the council station, just another primitive vessel returning to the outer rim. None of the advanced civilizations paid any attention to it. Why would they? It was just carrying some backwards humans back to their insignificant little world. Admiral Chen watched the stars through the ship's simple metal viewports and allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones you never see coming. 3 months had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Council as a protected agricultural world. The humans had quietly settled into their assigned outer rim territories, seemingly content to grow food and mine basic materials. Most council members had already forgotten about them. The first warning came from the deep space monitoring stations at the galaxy's edge. Long-range sensors detected something massive approaching from the dark space between galaxies. The signatures were unlike anything in the Council's databases, not organic, not energy-based, but something entirely mechanical. Dr. Kelvok of the Hegemony Science Division stared at the readings with growing concern. The approaching objects moved in perfect geometric formations, traveling at speeds that should have been impossible for anything made of solid matter. More troubling still, there were millions of them. Send these readings to the Council immediately, he ordered his assistant, and activate the emergency alert protocols. Within hours, the Council chambers filled with delegates summoned from across the galaxy. The mood was tense as Dr. Kelvok presented his findings to the assembled representatives. We are facing an unknown threat approaching from extragalactic space, he announced. Initial scans suggest a massive fleet of artificial constructs. We estimate their numbers in the millions, possibly billions. The chamber erupted in concerned voices. The Zephyrian delegate demanded more information. What kind of artificial constructs? Automated defense systems? Exploration probes? Unknown, Dr. Kelvok replied. They do not respond to any communication attempts. They maintain perfect formation and show no variation in their approach vector. Most concerning of all, our scans indicate they are actively scanning our galaxy as they approach. Council Speaker Valorian called for order. What is their estimated time of arrival at our outer territories? 14 standard days, came the grim reply. The first defense fleet was immediately dispatched to intercept the unknown vessels. 200 of the Council's most advanced warships, equipped with the finest plasma weapons and quantum shields available, moved to establish a defensive line at the galaxy's edge. Admiral Thex of the Crystalline Alliance commanded the defense fleet from his flagship, the Radiant Dawn. His ship alone was over a kilometer long, its hull made of pure energy held in crystalline form. Its weapons could vaporize an asteroid with a single shot. Remember, he broadcast to his fleet, we are representing the full might of the Galactic Council. Whatever these constructs are, they will learn that our galaxy is well defended. The two forces met in the empty space between star systems. The unknown fleet had arranged itself in a perfect cube formation, each vessel identical to the others. They were dark metallic objects roughly triangular in shape, with no visible weapons or engines. Admiral Thex opened communications on all known frequencies. Unknown vessels, you are entering Galactic Council space. Identify yourselves and state your intentions. The response came not in words but in action. The triangular ships suddenly shifted formation, spreading out in complex patterns. Energy readings from their hulls spiked dramatically. All ships, raise shields and prepare for combat, Admiral Thex ordered. They appear to be powering weapons systems. The battle began with a brilliant display of Council firepower. Plasma cannons erupted in sheets of superheated energy. Quantum torpedoes streaked across space, each one carrying enough power to destroy a small moon. The combined firepower of 200 advanced warships lit up the darkness like an artificial star. The plasma beams struck the triangular ships directly. For a moment, it seemed like the Council's superior technology would carry the day. But then something impossible happened. The enemy ships began absorbing the energy, their hulls glowing brighter with each hit. Admiral, our weapons are having no effect, reported his tactical officer. In fact, the enemy appears to be growing stronger. Before Admiral Thex could respond, the triangular ships returned fire. But they did not use their own weapons. Instead, they redirected the Council's own plasma energy back at the fleet, amplified and focused into devastating beams. The first Council ship to fall was the heavy cruiser Starfire. The redirected plasma beam cut through its quantum shields like they were not there, slicing the kilometer-long vessel in half. Explosions rippled through the fleet as more ships fell to their own weapons turned against them. Impossible, Admiral Thex whispered. They are using our own energy signatures. How are they adapting so quickly? The enemy ships moved with perfect coordination, their formations shifting to optimal firing positions faster than the Council computers could track. Every weapon the Council fleet fired was absorbed, analyzed, and turned back against them within seconds. All ships fall back, Admiral Thex ordered, but it was already too late. The triangular ships had surrounded the Council fleet in a perfect sphere formation. There was nowhere to retreat. Within 6 minutes of the first shot being fired, the ETI's entire first defense fleet was destroyed. 200 of the Council's finest warships were reduced to burning wreckage drifting in space. Only a handful of escape pods survived to carry the news back to the galaxy. The triangular ships, which the survivors had started calling the Kythera, did not pause to study the wreckage. They immediately resumed their course deeper into the galaxy, their formation as perfect as before. Emergency sessions convened across all Council worlds. The news of the first defense fleet's complete destruction sent shockwaves through civilizations that had not faced a serious military threat in centuries. The hegemony mobilized their stellar navy. The Zephyrian Empire activated their Guardian fleet. The Crystalline Alliance summoned their war forms from across their territory. Every major power began moving ships toward the advancing Kythera swarm. But each engagement ended the same way. The Kythera absorbed whatever weapons were used against them and turned them back with devastating effect. Energy weapons were useless. Quantum torpedoes became guided missiles targeting their own launchers. Even exotic matter weapons were somehow analyzed and countered within minutes. The mechanical invaders moved through the galaxy like a plague. Entire star systems went dark as the Kythera arrived. Planets were stripped of resources, their populations either killed or captured for unknown purposes. The proud civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia found themselves helpless against an enemy that turned their greatest strengths into weaknesses. Within 2 weeks, the Kythera had consumed over 50 star systems. Refugee fleets filled space lanes as billions fled before the advancing swarm. The Council's military forces, built for peace and ceremony rather than real warfare, crumbled before an enemy that seemed to have no weaknesses. In the Council chambers, panic had replaced the usual diplomatic calm. Representatives shouted accusations at each other, demanding to know why their military forces were so ineffective. "We have been at peace for 1,000 years, pleaded the hegemony delegate. "Our weapons were designed for defense, not for fighting an enemy like this." "Then what do we do?" demanded the Vorthan representative. "Our entire way of life is being destroyed." Council Speaker Valorian looked older than his 800 years as he surveyed the chaos around him. The galaxy's greatest civilizations were facing extinction, and they had no idea how to fight back. "We must consider every option," he said quietly. "Contact every member world. Request any information or resources that might help us understand this enemy." In the Outer Rim, on a small blue planet called Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen received the Council's desperate plea for assistance. She read the reports carefully, studying the tactical data from each failed engagement. Her expression remained calm as she reviewed footage of Earth's supposed protectors being systematically destroyed by an enemy they could not understand. "Interesting," she said to her staff. "They really do not know how to fight." The galaxy's mightiest civilizations had revealed their greatest weakness. They had forgotten how to wage war. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been going on for 12 hours. Half the galaxy was now under Kythera control, and the mechanical swarm showed no signs of slowing down. Desperate reports flooded in from the remaining free worlds, as their defenders fell one by one to an enemy that seemed unstoppable. Council Speaker Valorian looked exhausted as he reviewed the latest casualty reports. Over 3,000 warships destroyed, 200 billion civilians dead or missing, and 57 star systems completely dark. The greatest military minds of the galaxy had thrown everything they had at the Kythera, and nothing worked. "We are running out of options," admitted Admiral Kresh of the Zephyrian Empire. His usually proud bearing was broken by weeks of constant defeat. "Every weapon we use against them makes them stronger. Every tactic we try, they counter within minutes. Perhaps we should consider surrender," suggested the Nerian delegate quietly. "If we could negotiate." "They do not communicate," interrupted Dr. Kelvok. "We have tried every form of contact known to science. They simply take what they want and destroy everything else." The chamber fell silent as the weight of their situation settled over the assembled delegates. The greatest civilizations in the galaxy were facing extinction, and they had no idea how to stop it. "What about our newest members?" asked the Crystalline representative suddenly. "Have all worlds responded to our request for assistance?" A council aide consulted his records. "All major powers have committed their available forces. The agricultural and mining worlds have offered supplies and manufacturing support. We have not yet heard from Earth." Valorian frowned. "Earth? The humans? What could they possibly offer that our advanced civilizations cannot?" "Should we contact them anyway?" the aide asked. The request was sent to all member worlds. "Fine," Valorian said with a dismissive wave. "Contact the humans. Though I cannot imagine what a primitive agricultural world could do that we have not already tried." The call went out to Earth, traveling through quantum communication networks to the small blue planet on the galaxy's rim. Admiral Sarah Chen received the message in her office at Pacific Fleet Command. She read the desperate plea for assistance, with careful attention, studying every detail of the Kythera's capabilities and tactics. Her communication officer looked puzzled as he delivered the Council's message. Admiral, they are asking for any information or resources that might help fight these Kythera. They seem pretty desperate. Chen nodded thoughtfully. Patch me through to the council chambers. Within minutes, her image appeared on the main holographic display in the council chamber. The assembled delegates looked at the simply dressed human woman with barely concealed skepticism. What could this representative of a backwards agricultural world possibly contribute to their crisis? Admiral Chen, Valorian began formally, the Galactic Council requests any assistance Earth might be able to provide in our current crisis. We understand your technological capabilities are limited, but any resources— I need complete tactical data on all Kythera engagements, Chen interrupted calmly. Weapon specifications, energy readings, formation patterns, and detailed recordings of every battle. The interruption caused surprised murmurs throughout the chamber. The hegemony delegate looked offended at being cut off by a primitive human. Admiral, he said condescendingly, our greatest military minds have already analyzed this data extensively. I hardly think— Have you analyzed their quantum entanglement networks? Chen asked. The question caught everyone off guard. Dr. Kelvok leaned forward with sudden interest. What quantum entanglement networks? The Kythera ships coordinate their movements with perfect precision across vast distances, Chen explained. This requires instantaneous communication between vessels. They must be using quantum-entangled particles to share information and tactical data. Several delegates exchanged glances. The humans were more technically sophisticated than they had appeared. Do they have organic components? Chen continued. Any biological elements in their construction? None that we have detected, Dr. Kelvok replied. They appear to be entirely mechanical constructs. What about their processing speed? How quickly do they adapt to new weapon types? Extremely quickly, Admiral Kresh answered. Sometimes within seconds of first contact with a new energy signature. Chen nodded as if this confirmed something she already suspected. And they absorb energy weapons and redirect them? Yes, Valorian said impatiently. We have established all of this. The question is what can be done about it. I need 48 hours to analyze the data, Chen said. Send me everything you have. Sensor readings, tactical analyses, energy signatures, communication intercepts, everything. The request seemed absurd. The galaxy's greatest scientists and military strategists had been analyzing this data for weeks without finding a solution. Admiral Chen, Valorian said carefully, while we appreciate any assistance, perhaps you should understand that this data has already been reviewed by 48 hours, Chen repeated firmly. After I review the data, I can tell you if Earth can help. The transmission ended before anyone could respond. The council chamber buzzed with confused conversation. The audacity of these humans, muttered the hegemony delegate. Do they think they can solve what we cannot? Let them try, Dr. Kelvok said thoughtfully. At this point, we need every perspective we can get. The data was transmitted to Earth immediately. Admiral Chen spent the next 2 days in her command center reviewing every piece of information the council had gathered about their enemy. She studied battle recordings, analyzed energy signatures, and examined the Kythera's tactical patterns with the intensity of someone looking for a weakness that everyone else had missed. Her staff watched nervously as their admiral worked without rest, occasionally asking questions that seemed strange to officers trained in conventional space warfare. What materials are their hulls made of? She asked Dr. Martinez, her science advisor. Unknown metallic compounds with adaptive properties, he replied. But definitely solid matter? As far as we can tell, yes. Chen nodded and continued her analysis. On the second day, she called for a conference with Earth's military leadership. Fleet Admiral Thompson joined the meeting along with General Roberts of the Marine Corps and Dr. Sarah Kim, head of weapons development. Gentlemen, Dr. Kim, Chen began. I believe we can stop the Kythera. The statement caused excited murmurs. Around the table, Thompson leaned forward. How? The Council's most advanced weapons are useless against them. That is exactly the problem, Chen replied. The Council has been fighting this enemy the wrong way from the beginning. They are using energy weapons against an enemy designed to absorb and redirect energy, They are relying on sophisticated technology against an enemy that can adapt to any technology within minutes. So what do you propose? General Roberts asked. Chen smiled for the first time in days. We fight them the way humans have always fought. With methods they cannot possibly adapt to, because we perfected them long before we ever reached the stars. Dr. Kim caught on immediately. You want to use kinetic weapons? Among other things, Chen confirmed. The Kithara are designed to counter advanced civilizations that have forgotten how to wage real war. They have never faced an enemy that still remembers the old ways. The meeting continued for several more hours as Chen outlined her plan. It was bold, dangerous, and would require Earth to reveal capabilities they had kept hidden since joining the Council. But if it worked, humanity would save the galaxy. If it failed, there might not be a galaxy left to save. Admiral Chen opened a communication channel to the Council chambers. When her image appeared before the desperate delegates, her expression was calm and confident. Honorable Council members, she began, Earth is prepared to assist in the fight against the Kithara. We request permission to deploy our forces to the front lines. The chamber fell silent. These primitive humans, with their crude ships and chemical weapons, wanted to fight an enemy that had destroyed the galaxy's finest fleets. Admiral, Valorian said carefully, we appreciate your courage, but perhaps you do not fully understand what we are facing. This enemy has destroyed thousands of our most advanced warships. We understand perfectly, Chen replied. That is why we believe we can stop them. The statement seemed insane, but the Council was out of options. After a brief consultation, Valorian gave his approval. Very well, Admiral Chen. Earth is authorized to engage the Kithara using whatever methods you see fit. May the cosmos have mercy on us all. The news that Earth planned to engage the Kithara spread through the surviving Council worlds like wildfire. Most reactions ranged from confusion to outright disbelief. The primitive humans, with their crude metal ships and chemical weapons, thought they could succeed where the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had failed. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, flagship of Earth's third battle fleet. Around her, the bridge crew worked at stations that looked primitive compared to the holographic displays and quantum interfaces used by other species. Everything was physical buttons, switches, and screens, technology that seemed centuries out of date. But Chen knew something the rest of the galaxy did not. These primitive systems had one crucial advantage over advanced technology. They could not be hacked, analyzed, or adapted to by an enemy that specialized in turning sophisticated systems against themselves. Admiral, the fleet has reached the designated coordinates, reported her navigation officer. We are now at the edge of the Kithara controlled zone. Chen nodded as she studied the tactical display. Ahead of them lay the remnants of the Hegemony's Second Defense Fleet, over 400 warships reduced to floating wreckage in a matter of hours. The Kithara had not even bothered to salvage the debris. Signal all ships, Chen ordered. Battle stations. Implement radio silence protocols. Immediately. The human fleet consisted of 57 vessels of various sizes. They were boxy, angular constructs made of titanium steel alloys with no energy shields or quantum drives. To any observer, they looked like flying museums, relics from a more primitive age of space warfare. The Kithara detected the approaching human fleet and began moving to intercept. 300 triangular ships arranged themselves in a perfect combat formation, their hulls already beginning to glow as they powered up their adaptive systems. On the bridge of the Defiance, Chen watched the enemy approach with calm determination. Range to target, 50,000 kilometers and closing, her tactical officer replied. Hold position. Do not fire until they are within optimal range. The Kithara continued their approach, maintaining their perfect formation. They had learned to recognize the energy signatures of every weapon system used by Council forces, and their adaptive hulls were already preparing to absorb and redirect whatever the humans might throw at them. At 30,000 kilometers, the Kithara opened fire. Brilliant beams of redirected plasma energy, stolen from previous battles, streaked toward the human ships. But something unexpected happened. The beams struck the human vessels and simply dissipated against their hulls. Chen smiled grimly. Ablative armor performing as expected. These are not energy weapons they can redirect. The Kythera adaptive systems worked frantically to analyze what they were seeing. The human ships showed no energy shields, no quantum barriers, no advanced defensive systems. They were protected by nothing more than layers of metal and ceramic, designed to absorb and scatter incoming energy. Admiral, enemy ships are now within optimal range, reported the weapons officer. All ships, open fire. Target their formation centers. What happened next defied everything the Kythera had learned about galactic warfare. Instead of energy beams or plasma bolts, the human ships fired solid metal projectiles, tungsten rods weighing several tons each, accelerated by electromagnetic rails to tremendous velocities. The railgun projectiles traveled at 3% of light speed. They struck the Kythera ships before their adaptive systems could even register the threat. The triangular vessels designed to absorb and redirect energy attacks had no defense against simple kinetic impact. The first Kythera ship to be hit simply disintegrated. The tungsten rod punched through its hull like it was made of paper, the kinetic energy tearing the entire vessel apart from the inside. Explosions rippled through the enemy formation as more projectiles found their targets. The Kythera tried to adapt, but there was nothing to adapt to. The human weapons used no exotic energy signatures, no quantum effects, no advanced technology. They were just very fast pieces of metal, and physics was not something that could be analyzed and countered. Direct hits on 23 enemy vessels, reported the tactical officer. Enemy formation is breaking up. Chen watched with satisfaction as the Kythera ships scattered, their perfect coordination disrupted by an attack they could not understand. Launch fighters. From the human carriers came something the galaxy had not seen in centuries. Small piloted spacecraft carrying weapons instead of relying on automated systems. The fighters moved in unpredictable patterns, using human intuition and experience, rather than computer-controlled flight paths. The Kythera tried to target the fighters with their redirected energy weapons, but the small craft were too fast and too unpredictable. They darted between the larger ships, firing missiles with conventional explosive warheads. Again, the enemy adaptation systems found nothing to adapt to. These were simple chemical explosions, crude and primitive by galactic standards, but devastatingly effective against an enemy that expected sophisticated attacks. Admiral, enemy vessels are attempting to retreat, reported the communications officer. Negative. Do not let them escape. Signal the wolf pack. Begin hunting protocols. From concealed positions throughout the system came additional human vessels, submarines designed for space warfare. They had been waiting in the shadows using passive sensors and remaining completely silent. Now they moved to intercept the fleeing Kythera ships. The space submarines fired torpedoes, not quantum weapons or plasma charges, but simple explosive devices guided by basic targeting computers. The Kythera ships, already damaged and confused, fell victim to attack patterns developed in Earth's ancient ocean wars. Within 2 hours of the first shot being fired, the Kythera force was completely destroyed. 300 enemy vessels reduced to debris by methods so primitive that the galaxy's military academies no longer taught them. But the real shock came when the human fleet began moving deeper into Kythera-controlled space. Instead of consolidating their victory, they went on the offensive. Admiral Chen opened a communication channel to the council chambers. The assembled delegates stared in amazement at the human commander who had just achieved the impossible. Council Speaker Valorian, Chen said formally, the Kythera force in Sector 7 has been eliminated. Earth forces are advancing to liberate occupied systems. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted questions and demands for explanations. How had primitive humans succeeded where advanced civilizations had failed? Valorian called for order. Admiral Chen, your victory is remarkable, but surely you cannot mean to advance against the main Kythera fleet. Our intelligence suggests they number in the millions. Our intelligence suggests they are designed to fight civilizations that have forgotten how to wage war, Chen replied calmly. They have never faced an enemy that still remembers the old ways. Dr. Kelvok leaned forward with intense interest. Admiral, your weapons, they use no advanced technology at all. Correct. Kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives, and guided missiles with basic targeting systems. The Kythera cannot adapt to weapons that have no exotic properties to analyze. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Council. The galaxy's most advanced military forces had been using precisely the wrong tactics against an enemy designed to counter advanced technology. But your ships, protested Admiral Kresh. They are so primitive. How do they survive in combat? Chen allowed herself a small smile. Admiral, our ships may look primitive, but they were built by a species that has been fighting wars for its entire history. Every system has been tested in battle. Every design has been proven in combat. What do you need from the Council? Valorian asked. Stay out of our way, Chen replied bluntly. And do not use any energy weapons near our forces. The Kythera will redirect them against us. As the communication ended, the Council delegates sat in stunned silence. The primitive humans they had dismissed as harmless farmers were apparently the galaxy's most experienced warriors. They had been hiding their true capabilities all along. Admiral Chen turned back to her tactical display. The main Kythera fleet was still advancing through the galaxy's core systems, consuming everything in their path. But now they were about to face an enemy they were not designed to handle. Signal the fleet, she ordered. Set course for the hegemony capital. It is time to show these machines what real warfare looks like. The human war machine was fully awake now, and the galaxy was about to learn why Earth had never really needed protection. The liberation of the hegemony capital system became the turning point that changed everything. Admiral Chen's fleet arrived to find the planet under siege by a massive Kythera swarm. Over 10,000 enemy vessels systematically stripping the world of resources while millions of survivors huddled in underground shelters. But as the human ships engaged the enemy, something unprecedented began happening across the galaxy. Hidden fleets that had been concealed for decades suddenly activated and revealed themselves. From asteroid mining facilities that had seemed primitive and inefficient came massive battleships that dwarfed anything the Council had ever seen. From seemingly empty regions of space, entire fleets decloaked as their stealth systems shut down. The humans had not just been hiding their capabilities, they had been preparing for galactic war since the day they first left Earth. Captain Torres, of the UES Retribution, watched her tactical display with grim satisfaction as her ship's railguns tore through another Kythera formation. Around her, the space battle raged with an intensity the galaxy had not seen in 1,000 years. Captain, we have confirmation from all sectors, her communications officer reported. Ghost Fleet 7 has engaged the enemy at Zephyria Prime. Phantom Squadron is moving to assist the Crystalline Alliance homeworlds. Deep Strike Force Alpha is approaching the galactic core. Torres nodded. The plan was working perfectly. While the galaxy's attention had been focused on Earth's primitive agricultural fleet, the real human war machine had been moving into position throughout the galaxy. They had been watching, studying, and preparing for this day since they first encountered the Council. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the communication network. All units, the enemy is beginning to adapt to our kinetic weapons. Switch to secondary tactics. The human ships immediately changed their approach. Instead of relying solely on railguns, they began using weapons and tactics that no civilized species had employed for centuries. Nuclear torpedoes with chemical propulsion systems. Boarding parties armed with cutting tools and explosives. Electronic warfare using basic radio jamming instead of sophisticated quantum disruption. The Kythera adaptation systems, designed to counter advanced technology, found themselves completely helpless against methods that were older than most of the galaxy's civilizations. But the real shock came when human marines began boarding Kythera vessels. The mechanical ships, designed to operate in the vacuum of space, had never been built to repel internal threats. Human soldiers moved through their corridors with plasma cutters and explosive charges, systematically dismantling the enemy from within. Staff Sergeant Williams led his squad through the corridors of a Kythera command ship, cutting through bulkheads, with tools that would have been familiar to construction workers from centuries past. The enemy had no defense against such primitive tactics. "Sarge, we have reached what looks like their central processing core," reported Corporal Jackson. Williams examined the alien technology with professional interest. It was incredibly sophisticated, with quantum processors and adaptive neural networks that could analyze and counter almost any threat. But it had one fatal weakness. It was still just a computer. "Set the charges," Williams ordered. "Old-fashioned explosives. Let us see how their fancy processors handle high explosives." The destruction of Kythera command ships began disrupting their fleet coordination. Without their quantum communication networks, the mechanical swarm lost its greatest advantage: perfect coordination across vast distances. Back in the council chambers, delegates watched the battle reports with growing amazement. The humans were not just fighting the Kythera, they were winning decisively. "How is this possible?" demanded the hegemony representative. "Our greatest fleets were destroyed in minutes." Dr. Kelvok had been analyzing the human tactics with growing understanding. "They are not fighting the enemy we faced," he said slowly. "We tried to match the Kythera's technological sophistication. The humans are using methods so primitive that the enemy cannot adapt to them. But where did all these ships come from?" asked the Vorthon delegate. "Our intelligence showed Earth had only 12,000 vessels." Council Speaker Valorian looked older than ever as the full scope of human deception became clear. "They lied to us. They have been lying to us from the beginning." A new holographic display activated in the center of the chamber. Admiral Chen appeared, but she was no longer on the bridge of a primitive warship. Behind her, the command center of a massive space station stretched into the distance, filled with officers coordinating fleets across the entire galaxy. "Council members," Chen began, "I am speaking to you from Fortress Luna, Earth's primary military command center. I thought it was time for complete honesty." The revelation hit the chamber like a physical blow. Fortress Luna was a military installation that dwarfed anything the Council had ever built. "Admiral," Valorian said weakly, "your true fleet numbers?" "Currently engaged forces number approximately 40,000 combat vessels of various classes," Chen replied calmly. "Reserve fleets bring our total strength to roughly 120,000 warships." The number was staggering. Earth alone possessed more military vessels than the entire rest of the galaxy combined. "Why?" asked the crystalline representative. "Why did you hide this from us?" Chen's expression remained neutral. "Because the galaxy needed to believe we were harmless. We have been observing Council civilizations for decades. You have grown soft, peaceful, unprepared for real threats. Someone needed to be ready." "Ready for what?" demanded the hegemony delegate. "For enemies like the Kythera," Chen replied. "Earth's history is filled with examples of peaceful civilizations destroyed by more aggressive neighbors. We chose to ensure that would never happen to us, or to our allies." The battle reports continued streaming in. Human fleets were systematically destroying Kythera forces throughout the galaxy, liberating world after world with tactics that seemed impossibly primitive, yet devastatingly effective. Admiral Chen continued her revelation. "Earth maintains surveillance networks throughout Council space. We have detailed intelligence on every member world's defenses, trade routes, and strategic resources. We have been protecting the galaxy for years without you knowing it." "Protecting us from what?" Valorian asked. "Threats you never knew existed," Chen replied. "The Kythera are not the first hostile force to approach this galaxy. Earth has dealt with 3 previous incursions without Council knowledge. We prefer to handle such matters quietly." The scope of human activities was becoming clear. While the galaxy's civilizations pursued art, philosophy, and peaceful development, Earth had been serving as their silent guardian, watching the dark spaces between stars for threats to galactic security. Dr. Kelvok leaned forward with scientific curiosity. "Your weapons, your ships, they are deliberately primitive?" "Deliberately reliable," Chen corrected. "We learned long ago that sophisticated systems can be turned against you. Simple, robust technology cannot be hacked, adapted to, or redirected by enemies who specialize in corrupting advanced systems." On the tactical displays, the last major Kythera fleet was being systematically destroyed in the galactic core. Human task forces moved with precision through enemy formations, their primitive weapons carving through technological marvels like ancient swords cutting silk. The immediate threat is over, Chen announced. Kythera forces have been eliminated or are in full retreat. However, this cannot happen again. What do you mean? Asked Valorian. The galaxy's military forces are completely inadequate for real defense. You have created beautiful, sophisticated weapons that are useless against any enemy smart enough to turn them against you. Your tactics are outdated, your soldiers untested, and your strategies assume enemies who will fight by your rules. The criticism stung because it was completely accurate. The galaxy's greatest civilizations had been helpless against the first real military threat they had faced in centuries. What do you propose? Asked the Zephyrian delegate quietly. Reform, Chen said simply. Military cooperation between Earth and the Council worlds. Human officers will train your forces in practical warfare. Earth will provide defensive oversight for critical systems. In return, the Council will acknowledge Earth's true status as the galaxy's primary military power. The terms were not really a negotiation. They were the new reality. The humans had just saved the galaxy and revealed that they had been protecting it all along. The balance of power had shifted permanently. The age of peace through ignorance is over, Admiral Chen declared. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and peaceful civilizations survive only when someone is willing to stand guard in the darkness. Earth chooses to stand that guard. As delegates struggled to process the magnitude of what they had learned, reports continued flowing in of liberated worlds and rescued populations. The humans had not just defeated the Kythera, they had done it while minimizing civilian casualties and preserving infrastructure wherever possible. Council Speaker Valorian finally found his voice. Admiral Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, Earth is hereby granted primary defense status and full authority over galactic security matters. It was a formal acknowledgement of what everyone now understood. Godimon,